floor over to Joel and to Carol.
Awesome, awesome. Can you guys hear me okay? Perfect, perfect. Well, appreciate the time. I had an awesome time with you guys earlier this Wednesday, and I see some new faces. And additionally, I brought Carol Langlois. She is our CAO. I want to make sure I get that correct. Our Chief Academic Officer here at EcoText. And so she's going to be joining in today's presentation. Last Wednesday, we focused on kind of a surface level of EcoText. Who are the faces behind the company? What were our motivations in building the company and building the software, and ultimately giving you guys a sneak peek into the catalog and how you can go and hunt and explore different resources that you might be interested in or might align with your curriculum. So today we're going to focus on building up on that, and we're going to spend more time in the product and walking you through different processes and operations and building your courses, setting up organization structures, inviting students, and then diving into the book itself and understanding how can we maximize the value of these open educational resources so they're more collaborative and engaging for students. So it's definitely going to be a lot more time spent in the product. So feel free to raise your hands, ask questions. I want to make this as engaging as possible and make sure I answer any questions that you guys might have throughout this process. And then, of course, for myself, I always get excited when I jump into our platform because that's our baby. To spend a lot of time there. So please, flag me down if it might be going too fast, or if you'd like me to repeat a process or go a little bit deeper. And so Carol will also help me in steering that ship. So I will first pop open some slides just to guide us and provide some context, and then we're going to navigate ourselves back into the platform. So I'm going to share my screen here, and just give me the verbal cue if you're able to see the slides okay. All right, I see some heads are nodding. Got into full screen, so I think we are all set. So before I dive in, I want to quickly do an introduction. So Carol Langlois, she's on the virtual room with us. Carol, would you mind just giving us an introduction about yourself, your background, to provide some context for those on the bridge?
Oh, sure. Happy to. So I'm Carol Langlois. I'm the Chief Academic Officer for EcoText. I would say I met Joel's co-founder, Nelson. I don't know if any of you had an opportunity to meet Nelson. He and I met about a year and a half ago in a very kismic kind of way. He ended up telling me about EcoText, and I've spent about 20-ish years in education, mostly in higher education. So when he started telling me about the tool, I was really blown away by what it could do for faculty, what it could do for students, as well as how it would benefit administrators. So we ended up talking, and long story short, I ended up being an advisor for EcoText, and I've been with the gentleman for, I think it's about a year and a half now. And then I've just been kind of like creeping in, doing a little bit more and a little bit more with them. And then I'd say for the past month, I've jumped on board as the Chief Academic Officer, and I am thrilled to be here with them. I think the tool is amazing. And I'm just here to add to the conversation. If anyone, is interested in discussing more about the student perspective or the teacher perspective in terms of utilizing the tool, I am more than happy to kind of jump in that conversation. So I'm going to turn it back over to Joel and let him start the presentation.
Awesome. Appreciate that. And I see some new faces in the room as well, so I'd love to tap in and get some insights for those in the room. In the last session, I just went around and asked individuals their name, the discipline, the subject matter that they teach, and also where they were in the OER discovery process. So if you guys were interested in maybe finding out, if you were actively adopting, and so I see Quincy and also Yvonne, if I pronounce your name correctly. I'd love to get insight from you guys if you're able to contribute verbally.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit farther along in the OER process than some of my colleagues. I have worked on an OER grant already. So I've played around with an OER book one semester already. And then I'm currently designing a class, and we're using OER for the web course. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm not as hip on some of the tech parts of it, just the concepts is what I'm mostly familiar with.
Gotcha, gotcha. And I understand you are in the world of English and literature, correct? I think I saw a head nod there. Awesome, awesome.
Me and Quincy are actually creating a course together right now. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in and apologize, Joel. I had some technical difficulties switching over meetings and it crashed my computer. I apologize.
All good, all good. In the world of Zoom, anything can happen. Completely understand. Yvonne, would love to hear from you.
Yeah, I teach sociology, and we are developing a course with OER to be used probably next fall. And I've looked at a couple of textbooks through other companies or whatever you want to call them. And I'm not satisfied with the ones I'm seeing. So I wanted to see how EcoText worked and see if it's something we might be able to use.
Certainly, certainly. Yeah, definitely. And I'll point this out as well throughout the presentation, but feel free to create an account. And I also have a document that highlights all the major subject matters that we cover. And so I'll definitely follow up and send you that resource. Awesome. So thank you guys for introducing yourselves. As I mentioned, feel free to raise your hands, ask any questions. I want to make sure I provide as much insight and answer as many questions as you guys might have. So without further ado, for today, I'll quickly recap what we accomplished on Wednesday. And then I'll highlight some of the tools that we've built in EcoText specifically for educators. So I did see a handful of signups come through the past 2 days, and I was able to upgrade you guys to an educator account. So there are some capabilities within the platform that you would have as an educator role versus a student. So we'll highlight most of those capabilities, and that's really primarily centered around creating your organization, your course, your section, etc. And then we'll actually jump in and take an open educational resource and actually go walk through some practical ways in which you can actually leverage it. So being able to attach different resources, post questions, implement quizzes, different ways to interact with your students and to spark collaboration. So we'll walk through some practical examples, and then we'll also highlight at least 1 or 2 examples if we have time of how this has worked with other classrooms. You guys highlighted to me on Wednesday, there is a spectrum of subject matters here. We had English, we had math, we had physics, early childhood development. I decided to pull within the math territory and specifically statistics for today as the example resource that we'll go through. Typically, math is a harder region to find and anchor down good books in the digital space. So we'll focus in that realm, at least for today's session, when showcasing different examples on how you can build your curriculum. And then, of course, we'll just highlight how you guys can create an account and jump on EcoText and leverage it immediately. And we'll reserve any additional questions, any additional time that we have at the end for questions. So that's the agenda today. So just to recall where we left off in the first session, I see we mostly have the same faces, but also some new ones. We focused on the catalog on EcoText. So we jumped into the platform and we highlighted that there's over 100,000 different resources. And so they're span from a collection of different repositories and catalogs. The top line of logos that you see right there are actually ones that we partner with directly. So Merlot, Skill Commons, OpenStax, they are leading names in the OER world, and they develop and create really rich textbooks. But then additionally, Open Textbook Network, Open Book Publishers are just an example of the plethora of other content creators or catalogs that are available out there. So EcoText, we aggregate these resources from several different places and just make them available directly on the platform. And so you can search across title, author, your subject matter. We have tags built in with every single book that we publish. And then, of course, if you are interested in uploading your own resources, whether it's in a fashion just to be visible to your course and your direct students, or you want to contribute an OER resource globally or university, you have that capability as well. So we spent the bulk of the time in the last session just kind of introducing the history of EcoText and demonstrating how there are resources that you can pick up and leverage immediately. You don't have to start from ground zero. So today we're going to build off of that. So let's say you find your open educational resource. Maybe it's a textbook you want to anchor for the entire semester, or maybe it's a complementary resource that you just want to focus on for a particular chapter or a particular part of the semester, right? And so now it becomes, how do I actually practically use this software? How do I get my students involved? And how do I actually see the benefit of using open educational resources in a way that I'm getting good input from my students, I'm seeing how they're engaging with the content, and it gives me good feedback on how I can better integrate this content moving forward. And so that's what we're going to focus on today. And we make sure, at least from the educator side, that we start with the basics, right? And so you're able, as you can see, to create a course, invite students on, and then associate books. And so the screen on your right-hand side is just a snapshot of just those simple things where you're able to organize all these resources and the individuals that you want to associate them. So it's an easy gathering spot for you to manage, and then also for your students to come in and jump to the resource that they need to. And as you will see when we jump into the platform, every student has their own profile. They're able to go in and collaborate with each other and also collaborate with you. And then on the left-hand side is also an example of that, just in a mobile fashion. So we really want to emphasize that the tool is really ubiquitous. Whether you're on your phone, you're on your laptop, we really want to make this as frictionless as possible to be able to start your course, get students on there, and then on the reciprocal side, having students jump in and really attend to the different actions that you want your students to perform. All right, so let's actually go into the platform. The first thing we're going to do here, we're going to first create a course. We're going to walk through the process of inviting your students on, and then we're going to pick an open educational resource and actually dive in and walk through some practical ways of how we can take advantage of social notes to really start to get students engaging and to compile feedback and to really see the value what education can do with your open educational resource. So I'm going to stop my screen here and switch over. And where is my Zoom? And once more, I'm going to change over my tab and just give me a verbal cue, guys, if you're able to see the EcoText platform. I see some thumbs up. Awesome.
I can see it.
Excuse me. So for those who create an account, you will likely have a screen similar to this. Now, if you started to poke around in some books, then your last open and your recent will be populated with those titles. If you just create an account, you'll see a similar screen, but you'll have prompts. So we have a kind of like an onboarding queue to highlight to you guys different regions of the product. But as an educator, you do have some tools that we specifically created uniquely for you. And it starts right here in courses. So if I click on courses, this is essentially where you would manage your courses and sessions. So let's actually go about that process. And I'm going to click on new course. So as I mentioned, as an example, we're going to focus within the mathematic world, and we're going to pretend as if we are an educator that is teaching probability and statistics. So let's put that frame on and actually go through this process and see what that might look like. So first things first, let's just first put in the course name. Let's say we do have a code here. Let's say it's going to be math 1530, let's say. And let's give a quick description here. And we'll give it this subject. So now it's going to be 4 easy steps here just to go through and conclude and create this course. So let's say statistics, the section name here, if you have several different sections, let's just say is 1530.1, just to annotate that it is the first section. And we can add some start and end dates here. So let's say this is for the spring semester, and it'll start on the 16th, for example. And we know that the semester will end somewhere in May. Let's say it's going to end May 5th. So we've defined the duration of our section. If I click on next, this gives me the ability to upload any resources that I want to include within this course. And so maybe you have a PDF, worksheet of different problems that you want students to answer. Maybe you have a publication that highlights some context of someone who created a certain formula or mathematic process. It could be virtually anything, but this essentially allows you to upload any local resources that you have that you might want to include within this course. In this case, that's not my situation. So I'm just going to click on next. So here I have the ability to actually select any books that I want associated with this course. So if I click on add books, I can simply just search for it. So as I search for statistics, I can simply just add them through. So as you can see, this list here, looks like I've already added some, but I can search through and I can add any books that I've already seen on the EcoText catalog directly within the book list for this course. So I have quite a couple. Maybe I'm going to remove this one and remove this one. So I'll stick with these 3 books. Maybe my intent is that I'm just going to choose or select maybe a couple chapters out of each that I like. Right, so you can use one book, to include within your course, or you can add a whole plethora. It really is up to you and the intent that you want to pursue when teaching your particular course. So let's go with these 3. And as you can see, 2 to 3 here are from our good friends OpenStax. So that's awesome. Let's click on next. So here I can actually, all I need to do here is copy paste the emails of the students that I want to invite to this particular course. So whatever that email roster is. Now for today, I'm just going to invite Carol Langlois. I'll invite myself as well. And I'll invite my co-founder EcoText. So let's say for this statistic class, it's a pretty small cohort, but as you can see, I can just copy paste emails there, and everyone within this list will get an invite saying that you have invited them to this course of probability and statistics, math 1530. There are several other ways to invite students. So once we set up the course, you can always share a specific URL link. So you can post that link into your LMS of choice. I understand you guys use D2L, so you can post it there and they can simply click on it and it'll bring them to that same invitation page to accept. Or if you make your course public, they can actually search for that particular course using the code name. So Math 1530, and then they'll get the results and to be able to join from there. So if for any reason, you know, someone's having trouble getting to their email or the case might be, there are other options to invite students into a particular course. So just like that, we'll click next. We have a quick overview of the work we've done. So within 4 steps, we're able to define what our course is, add some characteristics to it, include any of the books that we wanted to, invite all the students that we want to associate within this course, and then click on this create button, and then we are all set. And if we wanted to create another section with some different characteristics, we have that ability to do so. That won't be our case for today, so I'm just going to click on no. And then as you can see here, we have that particular course. And then inside here, we have our sections, and you can imagine if we had several different sections, it will populate as such. And then of course, at any point in time, if we want to edit the work we've done, we simply just click on this pencil button, edit course, edit the section or add new section, and we'll go through that 4-step process to modify or edit anything you'd like. So I'll pause there real quick. This is the concept of adding a course and inviting students. Any questions? And of course, I'd like to invite Carol if she has anything additional.
Joel, what about removing students from a course? Is it just as simple? Can you just go back and just...
Yeah, so removing students for whatever reason, if Nelson got on my nerves and you know, I no longer want to see him come through into class, I'm able just to go through, backspace him out, click on next, and then he will have his access revoked.
And Joel, also I wanted to ask about the start date and the end date. What type of communication will the students get on that end date? And is there any type of reminder that they get that the class is ending and access is ending on that certain date? What does that end piece look like?
So the start and end date don't change any particular access points for the student for yourself. It's really for record keeping, and this is something that we use in for our data process. So for the analytics side is really where that information comes into play. So we're not reading from 2 years or, you know, random time variations, but for the section duration that you put in there.
So this is Yvonne. So that means you're not locked out at any point. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay.
You as the educator, if you want to close down the course, you can uninvite, you can delete the course, but we don't force you know, any of the shutdown processes, if I might say.
I have another quick question, hopefully. So if we're working in D2L, and let's say I put a link in for the EcoText, every time a student clicks on that link, they would go out of D2L and into EcoText. Is that right?
That is correct. That is correct. Awesome. Awesome. So we've created a course, probability and statistics. We have our section in there. Let's actually jump into one of the books that we had selected. And let's actually walk through a couple different examples of things that you might want to perform in terms of how you want to prompt students, engage students. So keep in mind, we're simply using this as an example with mathematics, but you can certainly apply these same concepts, whether it's English, whether it's early childhood development, whether it's physics or whatever the case might be. The content will change, the underlying content might change, but the concepts and the workflows are very much similar. So Here's one resource that we picked, one of the 3 that we picked, and as you can see here, statistics. We have all the information provided from this resource. So, the particular Creative Commons license, the description, and then of course you can share this book directly. So if you have, for whatever reason, you want to share this URL specifically, you can dump that in D2L as well. But let's jump into the reader. And we briefly jumped into the reader last time. But just to give a quick highlight here, going across left to right in this reader, we have a couple different action items that you guys will more and more, as you jump into EcoText, will be more familiar with. But this recent button allows you to jump in between different resources. So as you may saw, for this particular course, we use 3 different books. So imagine if you are referencing different chapters, different particular areas of the book. Your students are most likely going to have those 3 books as their most go-to resources. So they'll be able to quickly just jump into the next book with this shortcut here. And then across on the right-hand side, there's a search button. So if you have a particular keyword or phrase, this is completely digital. So that's an awesome part. We'll be able just to find all those instances and you can jump in the region in that book directly. Here is our annotations stream or feed. We didn't cover this in session 1, but you'll see the power of this annotation feed as we start to create social annotations that prompt students in different ways. We have our bookmarks. So if I click on this, now I've now bookmarked this particular page, and you'll see it in the table of contents that it'll become visible under the chapter that you're in, and you can jump to that bookmark really quickly from there. And then here in the settings, we have a couple different options that allow us to customize this resource. So from the font family to the size, we want to make sure that we're continuously pushing the boundaries of accessibility and making sure that these resources are inclusive. So that's a quick preview of the functions here in the e-reader. If you are familiar with Kindle or iBooks, it's going to be really easy for you to get going. And really the power that we're providing here is the social collaboration that occurs within the platform. So let's make the assumption here within this course, we're only going to be focusing on a particular section within the book. And so let's assume here that we are going to be focused on probability distribution of continuous random variable. Let's say this is our region where we're going to be focusing on in statistics. Just want to highlight here, with the reader, you can have images, you can have equations. So all these resources are selectable in a sense, right? So let's assume, typically, let's say you have a hybrid class where maybe you have lecture once a week and you record your lectures, or whatever the case might be, and you want to make sure that when students are reviewing this particular section, that they easily have access to maybe a video that breaks down a certain problem, or maybe a recording of your lecture. So there's reference, there's more context of what's going on in this resource. So one easy way that we love to introduce to educators the ability to embed videos, and particularly YouTube videos, directly within the resource, so the student can strengthen their understanding of a particular subject matter as they're reviewing it. So we can use that leveraging social annotations. So what I'm going to do here, for example, I'm just going to highlight a particular text within the book. And I can click on this button called Create. I gave a sneak peek to this in session 1, but we didn't really interact with it. But what this allows you to do essentially is to create a note that is extremely powerful. And so let's just say, for example, say, hey class, this is another introduction video reviewing how to solve continuous random variable problems. Excuse my spelling for now. Okay, so whatever message we want to portray, I'm going to focus on two specific things here on the screen that are extremely powerful. The one here on the left-hand side, so it says audience. This is where you can dictate who has visibility to this resource. And so on EcoText, we've structured the platform in which anyone can write to any resource essentially as metadata, but you can dictate who can see that particular annotation. So if I click on this, I have different options like private, public, section, course, institution, or group. So if I want this annotation to be accessible for just myself, maybe it's my personal note that I want here, I'll click on private. But if I want it to be visible by the entire course, I can simply click on course. And if I want it to be zoomed in for a particular section, I can click on section. So let's say this is a video that I want everyone in the statistics course to see, regardless of the section. I'll just simply click on course. And then I'll go and find my course, probability and statistics, and that's where I can determine my audience. Now, remember, I mentioned at the beginning that I wanted to actually associate a video that would walk through and help students better understand how to tackle these type of problems. And so on the right-hand side of this dialog box, I have this button called attach. And here, as you can see, I can essentially attach any particular URL that I find is going to be meaningful to associate with this annotation. So I'll just find what kind of category this just dumps into. I'm going to say this is a video. Simply post the URL. Say I have this walkthrough video. And if we're able to fetch a preview, you'll see a preview here so you can confirm that this is the right resource that you're attaching. So going top to bottom, I'm just creating a note. I've added my message here. I've attached a resource, this particular video from YouTube, and then I've determined who has the ability to view this. And this is everyone in the probability statistics course that I just created a couple moments ago. So I'll click on create, and I've now created that social annotation. So the power is when I go back to the social annotation, it populates on the right-hand side. This is me as the account, as the educator. I can see here, the type of annotation. It's a note, when I've done it, who has visibility to probability and statistics. Here's my message. And then right here within the resource, we're able to engage and watch this video. So this is breaking down, walking through a couple of different example problems. Maybe this is your lecture recording, or this could be a million different things, but essentially it's a URL that you believe would benefit students, and from here students are able to respond to it. They're able to ask questions, so they can ask questions, or you can maybe give some more context. But as you can see here, it's now available and directly linked in EcoText with this open educational resource. So we're really immediately off the bat, we're leveraging those 5 R's. We're already remixing this resource and attaching it with other resources that we believe would be of benefit. And I just want to highlight real quickly as well that each of these social annotations that we create do have their own independent link. And so as we click on this guy, I can click on copy link. And if I want students to specifically go to this annotation on EcoText, then I can also just simply paste this within my LMS, within D2L. And then when students click on that link, it'll bring them directly within this book to this particular annotation. So I'll pause there real quick just to get any questions, and to also, Carol, if you'd like to add anything as well in this kind of workflow attaching external resources.
Joel, are the comments attached to the account so like it would display the student's name when they commented on the annotation?
Exactly, exactly. So if I just do an example, right, I'm still in the same account, so you'll see the name there. But if I just to do an example here, right, I'll click on comment, and then it will show the student avatar, their name, and then of course you can also reply to comments. So you can go, indent particular threads as well.
Joel, is there any way to be able to see if all your students have utilized this resource and have actually watched this video?
So that's something that's in the product roadmap, is to have visibility analytics on for every resource that gets posted as a professor, who actually saw it and who actually interacted with it. So we have analytics currently that give us insights on the usage. So when students are creating annotation, what pages are they on? And our next step is to go into this level of detail of, hey, what's the interaction at an annotation level specifically? Awesome, awesome. I want to show just another example of these social annotations, but perhaps in a different way. I hinted at within the Wednesday session that the beautiful thing of open educational resources is that they're becoming not only more available and accessible, but they're also being created in different modes. And so
Hey, Joel, I just want to stop you for a second. I don't know if you can see on your bar, but Maria actually has a question. She has her hand raised.
Oh,
but I don't think it's visible to you.
I might not be. Maria, go for it.
Yes, I noticed we have a graph that depicts the area under the curve, and they're looking for the probability of that area under the curve between two values. My question is, since we are so concerned about accessibility, especially in math, is that graph accessible, or and how can we tell?
So you can so this is simply just an image. So it's not an interactive graph. Is that your question, perhaps?
Well, it doesn't have to be interactive, but it has to be accessible. Like, for example, if I have a student that he or she might be blind, how are they going to be able to read the graph?
Gotcha. Yeah, so what we can do, what we've done actually before in some instances is that we've attached a more inclusive or more accessible resource on top. So for example, what I was going to show actually was, let's just actually run through an example here, is if we have like a widget, because we've run into instances where for a math class, hey, I don't want it static because I don't want people to interpret this incorrectly. What if we had like a widget in which it's more dynamic and it can actually adapt to the local settings of the student? So what I'm going to do here is just demonstrate how we can leverage widgets here to amplify that. So this is a little bit different. You'll see more of a calculator here. What I've embedded is actually a scientific calculator. But as you can see here, we can leverage widgets to basically override any resources in the book. So we can actually replace this with, maybe a graphing calculator from what's that resource? I'm blanking on the name, but we can replace it with like a graphing calculator, for instance. And when it comes to certain resources like OpenStax, they actually do a great job in ensuring that any of the resources they embed within the book on the surface layer is already accessibility friendly.
Hey, Joel, in the chat, Anna asked, do images have alt text throughout the book?
It all depends on the book itself. So when the publisher publishes that resource, if they pass alt text, and we'll be able to extract it. If they don't, unfortunately, we won't. So I don't know if it's not a standard within the EPUB format to have alt text. So it really is going to depend on the resource itself, unfortunately.
On that, as we go through, because we have to make sure that every book that we provide to our students has alt text for every single image. Is there a way, as we're in a textbook, to be able to check?
Yeah, so what we can do actually, when we work with you guys, we can actually have almost like a scanner. We can create a scanner and actually run through and identify all the resources that do and do not. So we can ensure that any resource that you guys leverage abides by the policies that you want to enforce. So Amy, let me follow up with you there and make sure that's something that we execute on.
Thank you so much.
Awesome, awesome. So I want to just quickly demonstrate as well. I within answering Maria's question, I highlighted just another ability here. Oh, looks like I clicked the link in that calculator. I highlighted another ability there of the annotations to incorporate widgets. And so we've actually had a great time with a class that we worked with on biology to do virtual lab simulations. So just to show that there is a lot of flexibility on how you can prompt students, engage with students right within the margins of the open educational resource that you might be leveraging. So I do want to demonstrate one unique annotation as well, which is our quiz function. So this allows you to essentially pose a question and you can get feedback or understand what is the right or wrong answer for a particular question. So let's go through here. I'm going to close this guy for now. And let's see here. Let's go. Let's assume we have a question here. So I have two very similar functions. We have a poll and we have a quiz. So traditionally, when educators use a poll, it's an open-ended or there's no right or wrong answer. So typically we've seen educators use this functionality to get sentiment. Hey, do you guys feel confident going into next week's exam? And yes or no, or what regions of this chapter was most confusing? And students will respond. So we've seen educators leverage that mechanism as a way to get feedback and to get sentiment. With a quiz, it's a very similar structure, but the difference is you determine what answer is right or incorrect. And so for here, we've used this, we've seen educators use this almost as kind of clicker questions, kind of in the beginning of the lecture, just to get a sense of where students are at. Hey, in this multiple choice, what's the right answer here? So let's assume that we have a question here. And so in statistics, or let's do like a basic math questions, I suppose here. So I'm just going to add a couple of answers. And we'll do this. So we'll say 90, 93, just to And so we can do up to 4 different options as for any particular quiz that we create. And then here we're able just to check off what is the correct answer, right? And so for math, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, if you're doing history, you can do the same thing, pose a question and provide some different options there for students to select on which answer is correct. And then we have a due date here. And so this essentially means when does this quiz need to be completed by? So we'll do the 8th, let's say just for tomorrow. And then in a similar sense, we have, we have the option here to determine who is it visible for. So we'll click on course there. We'll click on the same programming statistics course. And then easy enough, we have just created that quiz. So here, this is what it looks like. So we know that the right answer is 93 for this particular case. Similarly, we can take this link here and paste it right into our DTL if we'd like. And the awesome feedback we've gotten with these quizzes is that it's right within the context of the book. And so the students are going through, they're reading a section, and then boom, they're prompted with a quiz, and it has a lot more contextual meaning there. So let's say I put in the incorrect answer, for example. I won't get my feedback just yet because the quiz is still not complete. It's not due. There's 20 hours left. I marked it till the 8th. But when the time has run up, then I'll be able to see, okay, actually 90 was incorrect, and it'll show me that 93 was the correct answer. So we're able to do kind of these micro assessments, if you will, right within the margins of the resource. And as an educator, that's one of the awesome tools you have when leveraging social annotations and identifying different ways to interact with students. So I'll pause there, right, Mark? Oh yeah, go ahead.
Joel, I had a question. So I'm a teacher professor. I've posed a question for the class. 3 sections are seeing the actual quiz, but some of the students are going, oh, I'll get back to that. I'll get back to that. Is there a reminder or some way that can prompt the student that the deadline is actually coming up if they have not submitted their answer?
So the deadline will always appear within the module of the annotation itself. But what we have seen actually and sometimes is that educators will go out their way and actually tag students directly. So you can actually go in here and say, okay, hey, Nelson, I've noticed you haven't answered. We've seen this tactic to actually get students come in, and Nelson will get a notification. Or you can just simply tag all the students, and they'll actually get a notification via email as well. So that's actually one interesting creative way that we've seen educators go in and nudge some participants.
Thanks.
Awesome. We have about 10 minutes left. So what I want to do is take a moment to come back to the slides and to also make sure we have enough time for some questions. So just to quickly recap, we started off jumping into the platform for creating the course, right? So, we've went through the catalog of EcoText, we've found some interesting resources, and we're able to go through, create a particular course, add a section here, invite students within that course, and then start to actually build out the different prompts and engagements that we'd like students to participate in, really making the learning more collaborative. I want to just show one example here, since we were actually just in a statistic book. I just wanted to show, a gentleman asked earlier, what does that kind of back and forth want to look like? So I just want to show just an example of that, give you guys some more context. Here's one example of this here, where we have an annotation, we have a prompt. It's here with attached with a video. And then you have, in this particular case, students are able to respond to it directly. They're able to like their particular comments, and then you see replies. So you can see how this micro engagement can go back and forth, in which students are asking questions, they're collaborating with each other, and you're able as well to participate in the threads as an educator and oversee that. So I'm going to switch my screen share back to the presentation, just to bring it all back together here. Awesome. Does everyone see the slides? Thumbs up. Okay, awesome. So, just as we mentioned, open educational resources unleashed, right? So as an educator, you can go in, you can set up that organizational hierarchy, invite students, and start to actually build out this resource where it works for your classroom. It works for your curriculum, and achieves the objectives that you want to see the students working towards. And here within the student experience, it can be extremely dynamic, right? Just within this resource, we're able to add quizzes. The students are able to reply, annotate, and we didn't review this, but they're also able to create citations. So we're giving them more tools and more functionality here, whether they're on their laptop, their phone, or their desktop, right? It's really taking OERs to the next level, and maximizing that value and allowing you to see that, allowing you to observe that. And we showed a couple of examples of what that might turn into. And so we specifically, started on the video. I showed a widget with a scientific calculator, but there's a whole spectrum of different ways that you can leverage EcoText and maximize your OER, right? And so for some sciences, we looked at virtual lab simulations. And so we were able to embed that right within the course. And so imagine students in an online or remote setting, they're able to collaborate with each other. They're able to interact with those labs, and it's built in contextually with the resource that you have adopted within your class. If you are a flashcards type individual, go ahead and make flashcards and have the students study and have that context right within the book. If you're big with podcasts and with audio, feel free to add those clippings in, whatever makes sense for your particular class and the objectives that you want to achieve. Perhaps you have slides, you want to make sure they're available for students. You can embed them right in there. So these are just a couple of different examples how you can get extremely creative, and the tool is really flexible for you to impose and really design the environment that you want students to engage with. So that's EcoText, right? Session 2, how do you really take these OERs to the next level, build on top of them, and really build out your curriculum. As always, I'm here to help. So if you have questions, finding resources, making sure they are abiding by the policies at Nashville Community State College, or in whatever case, maybe you want to have fun and actually sprinkle in different ways that you want students to interact with these books. Maybe you have a certain idea that you've been hard pressed to implement with other softwares. We'd love to work with you and understand the best ways that we can achieve that here at EcoText. So yeah, that's what I have today for you guys. Hopefully that was a benefit. And as always, you can go to ecotext.co to create a free account. And then certainly I'm always available to help answer any questions and to make sure that you guys are getting the most within this OER journey. There's a lot of resources, a big network out here. And so we're one helping hand that we want to make sure you get off to a good start.
I want to say thank you, Joel. Thank you, Carol, for being with us today. This has been wonderful. I did